The alignment of aims, purpose and values between staff, teams and organisation is the most fundamental aspect of motivation. The better the alignment and personal association with organisational aims, the better the platform for motivation. It's impossible to create great music if all the players don't have a rhythm to follow and the motivation to play their part. It is your job as the leader of the band to help each of the people in your team to grow and contribute to the final piece. You can assist with this by motivating your team individually and encouraging them to share best practice and play harmoniously. So, who are we? My name is Becky and I'm here on behalf of Think Consulting. We've been chosen for this project because we work not only with Microsoft but also across the industry as a whole. Today, we would like to show you some of the best tips and techniques to ensure the motivation levels within your team are maintained. So why the need for this training? Maintaining motivation is a very critical topic within this series. We've looked at many tips and techniques for coaching your teams through various topics, but we need to understand how to keep both the team and ourselves motivated to keep the momentum and manage people through the various business and personal changes they will encounter. You can use the quieter periods in the business cycle to really concentrate on your team and motivate them to even greater success in the following financial year. Before we look at how to motivate your team, let's have a look at you. This is the time that we focus on you and about taking time for yourself, reflect, re-energise and really put things into a healthy perspective. Take half an hour to document and highlight all the good things that your team have done in the past year. The journey is long and sometimes we need the reminder of how far we've come. It's a means to re-energise and get motivated. Over the last 25 years, change is becoming the norm. Take time to reflect upon your own achievements. Change is always a positive thing when you are driving it. And remember, change is just the wind that blows. So if you don't like the course, change the sail. What are your personal goals and objectives and what are those of the team? Remember that when you have a positive thought, you release serotonin, which drives the physical feeling of happiness and motivation. If you think you can, you can. The greatest reason people feel demotivated is fear. False evidence appearing real. What generates the positive is the DAC factor. Drive, attitude and confidence. Some days we really pedal the bikes. The other days we just coast along. Have you ever done something that you do really well on autopilot and the minute someone stands behind you, you lose your ability to do that thing? DAC is the valve that turns on the flow of our skills and knowledge. We can develop motivation on our bike by setting goals. There will always be rocks in the road, and if you have no goals, even the smallest pebble will unsettle you. Setting clear goals will ensure you and your team have the motivation to continue. Pareto defined a law that 20% of what you do brings you 80% of your success. For example, in a land survey, he found that 80% of the land was owned by 20% of the people. An idea for you. Can you identify the 20% of what your team do that makes the biggest difference in your success? Now identify the 20% of things that you do that brings your team the least results and make a decision to divert the energy to the high reward areas. Recently, your colleagues within Inside Sales have tried this. It was a tough exercise, however the results have been really exciting. Firstly, lead by example. Your motivation needs need to be looked at first. What are you trying to achieve and why? What motivates you? Next, you need to understand the instruments your team have. Now look at your team. Using the analysis in the tools section, assess what motivates your team at the moment and don't forget that this can change. Be aware that the drummer may want to write some lyrics too. Third, conduct the momentum of the music. It is important to look at the natural business rhythm to re-energise your team, and as a sales manager, it is your responsibility to prepare for each new wave of activity. The reality is that there is a normal cycle of reduced productivity and activity in July and August, and segmentation that occurs in Q4. As with music arrangements, there is often a period of quiet anticipation before the big crescendo, and you should use this time to get the sales force excited about selling and improving on their sales skills. Just because the scorecard metrics are not locked until September doesn't mean that your team should stop selling. Finally, keep being creative and inventive. The key tip for you is to keep going. Your strategy for keeping your team motivated will change due to the rhythm of the business, but there is always a new avenue to follow, and people will change over time. Abraham Maslow developed the hierarchy of needs model in the 1940s and 50s in the USA, and the hierarchy of needs theory remains valid today for understanding human motivation and personal development. Indeed, Maslow's ideas surrounding the hierarchy of needs concerning the responsibility of employers to provide a workplace environment that encourages and enables employees to fulfil their own unique potential, known as self-actualization, are today more relevant than ever. Each of us is motivated by needs. Our most basic needs are inborn, having evolved over tens of thousands of years. Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs helps to explain how these needs motivate us all. The hierarchy of needs states that we must satisfy each need in turn, starting with the first, which deals with the most obvious needs for survival itself. Only when the lower order needs of physical and emotional well-being are satisfied are we concerned with the higher order needs of influence and personal development. Conversely, if the things that satisfy our lower order needs are swept away, we are no longer concerned about the maintenance of our higher order needs. As you will hear, all of your team will be at different levels. So, how can we get them all in tune? We are now going to look at an exercise you can run with your team. More exercises you can use with your team can be found on the links in the accompanying resources PowerPoint slide. So, understanding each of the stages of Maslow, can you give me an idea of one thing that you feel you would all need?
As a new starter, in biological, I really needed all the basics. To know who everyone was and to know what was okay to make mistakes.
And for me, it's safety. I wanted to understand all the Microsoft acronyms because it was weeks before I just felt like everyone was talking a foreign language.
And I think belonging. Team activity is so important to me. I want to go out to team lunch.
For me, though, that would be really scary at the moment, as I don't know everyone's name yet.
Also, for me, esteem, I think I'd want more responsibility. I'd want the rest of the Microsoft hierarchy to know who I am and how I could be recognised in the future.
Okay. See, it's tricky to keep you all motivated when you're at different points of your career, and I need to balance all your different levels of motivation.
Yeah, it's actually quite good for us to think about others in the team because we quite often only consider what we need and not other people.
So, considering Maslow's hierarchy of needs, you will have different members of your team at different stages within Maslow. For instance, your new starters may be at biological, but you may have some members of the team who are at esteem, and each will need different triggers for their motivation. We have asked your fellow sales managers for some of the ideas they have found that have worked for them. Here are the top answers grouped by Maslow stages. Self-actualization, an ideas board, to input sales calling topics for the future. Be a good leader. Let your motivation lead the team and have a clear and concise goal and follow it. Coaching. Give people one-to-one time to talk and help them build their expertise. Training. Give your team internal or external support to develop them. Esteem needs. A handwritten letter sent to them at home on a Saturday. Recognition with the appropriate senior people. Email or meetings are a good forum for this. Motivational speakers. Some of you may recall the time that the athlete Chris Akabusi came to the UK headquarters to talk about how self-motivation had helped him to achieve his goals in his career. Belongingness. Rewards in a team huddle, for large opportunity, for best use of Siebel, or for those who've shown extra care for a customer relationship or has a good customer partner experience. Hype days. Calls with high activity and prizes awarded in the day, such as permission to switch off email for 45 minutes. Monthly Monopoly, an incentive with rewards for team activity. As people land on each of the squares, they build up points towards various team activities. A half day off, for the top performer of the month achieving a certain level of pipeline. Days out. For example, the Go Ape Highwire Forest Adventure. Or a team lunch. Safety needs. Quotes and imagery. Let's make the sales team visible. Communication, for good manners. Also remember the soft facts. For example, the sports teams your team support or play for. Biological. Power hours. Specific time allocated to calling and prioritising sales activity. Incentives such as financial bonus. Questionnaires, assessing their level of motivation. So, what should success look like? Here are some resources that will help you and your teams. You will find the links on the accompanying resources PowerPoint slide. Thank you for your time, and I'd like to wish you and your team every success for the future.